We are lighting the candle, a world that works. I'm Bill Correll, and I'm here with one of my really great buddyettes in the world, Jan Jeremias. And the two of us are doing a little bit of an experiment today because I'm actually on a walkabout down in Florida at the moment, and I've pulled off of I-75, and I'm over here by a Bob Evans of all places, and we're just going to see if we can have a little chat here and make a difference in each other's lives. And if we do that, then we're pretty sure it's going to work for you too. To just kind of remind you what we're here for. There's a lot going on in the world out there. There's a lot of noise, and for our time with you, we're going to invite you to maybe take a minute, close your eyes, you know, maybe touch your thumb and forefinger together and just kind of like breathe in and breathe out and more or less become present and just enjoy the moment that you have now and enjoy this life and enjoy everything that's going on and most everything, and just take it all on and love everything for what it is and what it isn't. Okay. So with that said, Jan, how are you doing today? And you don't have to answer that question.
Probably better that way. I'm okay, Bill. I'm okay. I'm here with you, which means, things can only go up.
I was going to say, what could go wrong?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, it's an interesting day down here. I've got like Maxfield Parish billowing clouds against the blue sky. Any of you that know a little bit about art, you're starting to get a visual of what I'm looking at here. So green and so beautiful. And hot. It's about 93 degrees right at the moment. So I'm sitting in with my car running and the air conditioner on. How's that for background noise, Jan?
Oh, it's fine. I'm not hearing it, Bill, so it's fine.
Marvelous. That's good. Then I won't have to break out into a sweat here after 20 or 30 minutes. So Jan, let's shift the conversation, if we can, because you and I both know that life comes at us and what we're surrounded by sort of becomes a soup of how it is, and our thoughts that, will focus on the things that we're trying to solve that we can't solve. I would say I've found for myself on this trip, because I've had a lot of alone time in my car driving 200, 300, 400 miles at a time. And so it's kind of a reassuring thing for me to check in and test my reality and sort of notice what kinds of thought patterns, if you will, have been happening, because you and I both know 80,000 thoughts a day. We don't pick which ones we get, but we do have a little choice over which ones we empower, right?
Absolutely. I'm I'm there with you in that absolute statement, Bill, because we get to choose where we put our attention. And sometimes our attention, it is. You mentioned it as we opened. You're looking to solve a problem or a situation, and it's hard to not think about that one, two, three things that are in your immediate purview.
Right.
It's really hard to do that, let alone the things that you can't really, the stuff that's that's besides for everything that's going on in the world that you really feel like needs to be remedied, and all the outside stuff.
Yeah, and there's a real technology that a lot of people are successful in employing, and it does take a little bit of time to develop the muscle to be able to do so. But in the face of things that are not working, um, there's a lot of power in being responsible for what's going on in the world. Your perception of how things are. And if you can be responsible for that, you're the cause of that, or not necessarily the cause like the action cause, but your energy is the cause of what happens in the world. You have the choice to shift to an energy state where you're inviting abundance, where you're inviting solutions, where you're inviting at an energy level, not at a process or steps level. So what if it's possible for your choice to empower the direction that your thought patterns are going to go. And if we can think in terms of the law of attraction, what you put out into the world in terms of energy, you'll get back only more. That's the simplification of probably 3 years worth of study you can put into it. However, when you really come down to everything, the more you're positive, the more you're going to attract positive things. And I don't mean Pollyanna positive. I mean, we're going to get through this in a powerful way, kind of a thing, where we're never going to have to sit in the middle of traffic going 80 miles an hour with our car stuck in neutral while everybody's zooming by us feeling powerless. We'll we'll always have that ability to hit the clutch, put it in gear, and catch back up again because that's who we are. We're beings that make a difference, right? Sometimes not in our own life so easily. So that's where the challenge comes in.
I was just having, I mean, and that's in regard to everything. I think that, yeah, I mean, I think that, and they always say it's easier to give other people advice, but I mean, that's like kind of one snippet of it. Is I think a lot of times it's very hard for us to see we're too close to actually have an objective opinion to certain
Right.
things. We're also too emotionally vested. So there ends up being that whole element. And I was having this conversation in regard to Tonka last week because Tonka had a few compressed discs in his back. And so he and so we were chatting about, somebody said, "Oh, you can treat him," but it doesn't usually necessarily work like that because I'm too close to him and he is so bonded to me. It's
Yeah.
almost like, I can treat him, but I actually go and bring him to somebody else if he needs. So, it's sort of like a surgeon doing surgery on themselves.
Right. 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 Yeah. There are times where have a disinterested, focused professional on board.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so and then I think that that's when, like what you just mentioned, like talking to a friend or, something like that is you know is more helpful than sitting and like just regurgitating your own thoughts you know and feeling.
Yeah.
I say regurgitating because it's the repetition, the repetitive nature, the patterns that we tend to think is, as much as I'm very conscious of what my thoughts and my tendencies, and as much as I know that, and it is a conscious choice not to go there. There
Right.
are times where, you know, I can't seem to get out of my own way, kind of thing.
And, yeah, so that's really interesting. And I'll tell you what, this is a powerful place for you and I to kind of like model for our listeners. What do you do when that happens? So, more often than not, what the struggle comes not from the thought, but the resistance to it. Because what you resist will persist, right? And let's face it, if you suddenly were to choose to become happy, none of the things in your life would change except for your willingness to be generous with yourself, to take care of yourself. And self-care is so important. Nobody else can do it for you. So, what do you hear in that, Jan?
Well, self-care is really important, and I have a LinkedIn community, and we're very focused on self-care and
Yeah.
encouraging self-care. um for me, I know that when I am in a place like that, it's sometimes getting out in nature really helps. Um, that's actually probably one of the things I would say go to a lot. I
Yes.
also, certain things that I want to say, like, and I don't mean accomplished in a like I'm gonna to-do list kind of way, but actions or things where I actually get to see a result.
Yeah.
are very satisfying because I think sometimes for me, being in my own business, I plant a lot of seeds and I don't necessarily see the fruition of those seeds right away because I
Right.
plant them and I might not see the results of them for 6 months, a year. Like you never know when people are gonna like it. People you speak to are all gonna sudden say, "Oh my gosh, I spoke to her about this or him about this, and that really now makes sense for me."
Yeah.
That might happen in 2 years from now, but I think that sometimes you literally planting seeds, like getting out and doing, like yesterday, I did some raking and reseeding and watering and like seeing that fertile soil, that land, that piece that I cleared, and and it's the soil's kind of turned up and brown, and the seeds are there, and everything was really satisfying at the end of the day. Like I could see what I had done. And I think sometimes it's very hard for us because we don't necessarily see our actions take root, or we don't see that necessarily depending on what you do. And sometimes
Yeah.
that's hard as you go through life. Like you're like, what am I doing? I don't see any like fruits of my labor kind of thing. I don't know. Am I really making a difference?
There is a velocidyness to it, if you will, that if you're working hard and fast and it's not producing an end result for you, the automatic response is, well, I probably go faster, faster, you fool, you know? And sometimes maybe it's stop and do something different for a minute or two, like you're saying. The universe has no idea which of the things you're working on are important. You got to remember, there's close to 8 billion other people doing stuff all the time, right? And the universe is somehow able to keep track of all of that, in this big stew of people's emotion and energy and all the rest of that sort of thing. But, if you come right down to it, and if you have a sense in your mind that things are wrong, then you'll continue to have that until you make a choice to have another thought that you have to initiate. So making a choice to stop what you're doing, go outside, scratch the dirt for a minute or two, put some water down, put a little bit of fertilizer, whatever, chase the dog around the yard, you know and then come back in having a little bit of fresh air in your lungs, and then sit back down again, and then do like a self audit, do a body scan and a mental, more or less a mental psych audit of how do I feel now, and what's the source of that, and if I were to replace that feeling with something else, what would I choose to put there? So the neat part of it is that in the big picture, what's the most important to do is that thing that makes you healthy now in this moment.
Yeah. And you know, in doing so, I love what you said is like, do something that in that moment would make you happy because I think knowing quite a lot about the self-care realm and knowing the precise things I need to do, sometimes those are the hardest things to do. Like when I am trapped in my thoughts, and I say trapped because I'm on that kind of whatever that I'm on that like hamster wheel in my thoughts of like the just the same thing. Sitting down and meditating is not what I need to do as much as I promote it. But I really, because I don't, one is because I don't really want to sit there and have all those thoughts,
Right.
or all those feelings. And so I sit there and I'm like trying to, and one of the things you said, resist, and I'm trying to push them out. But that's very, very energetically draining. Like, don't think that. Don't feel that right now, for whatever it is, for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, it's like, it's exhausting. And
Good luck with that, as they say.
like,
Yeah.
hey, good luck with it too, right? And so, like the other day, I sat down and the meditations have really been helping me, and probably because I wasn't in that dramatic kind of real, I want to say dramatic, like powerful, like ruminating of my thoughts. And so
Right.
I was able to do that. And I would say journal. which is useful. I mean, I have journaled at times like that, but sometimes when I journal things like that and a whole bunch of negative stuff comes out, it's maybe good in the fact that I've now done a brain dump or an emotion dump.
Right.
But if I want to go back and reread it, it's not something I necessarily want to reread because it's rereading all this stuff that I was trying to like make a choice to get rid of.
Right.
So, like, I mean, I sat down to do that the other day, and I was like, I wrote down a few sentences, but then I was like, this just isn't working because right now I wouldn't want to read. Like sometimes I've been writing a lot of inspirational stuff after I meditate. And that's been really powerful for me
Sure.
to go and to reread all these things that I'm worried about or my concerns about whatever. It's not very calming
Right.
or uplifting when I'm in that space. It just isn't. Sorry, everybody out there.
Well, see, when you open a toolbox, if you only have a hammer in there, then you're kind of limited in the good results you're going to have. You're
Right.
going to your results are going to be hit and miss if you use that hammer for everything. So what you want to put in that toolbox is a bunch of different options that in any moment you can try, a hammer. And if that hammer is not getting that screw to go into the wall very well, look around, see if there's a screwdriver in there. It might be a flathead screwdriver. Oh, it turns out it's a Phillips head screw. Maybe we haven't not quite got the right tool yet. We need to do a little bit of fine tuning. So the bottom line to all of this is I mentioned responsibility. It's a key to the process of making a difference in the world at all, because you have to begin with yourself. And I don't mean like you have to begin with yourself, because a lot of people don't. I mean, for God's sake, most people do not think that anything they do in the world will ultimately make any darn difference at all. And so they go like almost sleepwalking through their lives. However, I'm here to give you a tip. I was sent to give you a tip. The tip is, hey, buddy, hey, gal, you make all the difference with you and the quality of your life. And like happiness, that whole, I'd like to be happy. I'd like to find happiness. I'd like to be with someone who makes me happy. Well, I got a bad, set of heads ups here for you. And that is that happiness is like sweat. You generate it. It don't come from anywhere else. You got to do physical labor to generate sweat, right? Happiness is the same thing. There are exercises that you can do, and these things like sitting down, and for some people, meditating at sometimes. For other people, it's chasing the dog around. For other people, it's just patting themselves on the head and on the side of their necks and down the front and their back and getting goosebumps while they're doing that. And for other people, it's just phoning a friend they haven't talked to for a while and saying, you know what? I'm sitting here right now and I'm desperate in terms of, what I do next. I'm in good shape. Don't worry about it. I'm not, but I'm desperate I've been stuck in this position here now for too long. And I want to say, I love you, and start that conversation and hear what you have to say in response to that. You can do anything. You just want to interrupt the stuckness, and you want to put something in place that will allow your state to change and invite the power of the law of attraction to bring really good things back to you.
Yeah. But I agree that um, we are, we are responsible, or we have to take it's basically, I think of it as we have to take ownership of our own happiness, because if you look for it outside of you, you'll be looking for the rest of your life. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just the bottom line. um as much as we think out everything outside of us will make us happy, um yes, there are certain things which may make life more easeful for us, but true happiness comes, starts from it within.
And here's where I'm gonna say Well, if you know, Bill, you're full of uh, cotton balls. Okay. Quite frankly, I have to go and do this in order to be happy. Well, all right. Guess what? You're being stingy with yourself. That set of circumstances which is scarce in your life must be present in order for you to experience being triggered to remember to be happy. Hey there. You know, you just can't get to the gym 24/7. You can't get in touch with your sister, you know, to talk to her about every little thing. So you got to develop other ways that you can access your own ability, again, to remember to be happy so that you can generate that. You can stand where you are and jump up and down and become 10 times more excited for a minute or two and then bust up in laughter, you know?
the whole purpose of, like silly cat videos, like, whatever.
So
Sorry.
it's that, okay? And I got to tell you something. This is so cool. Yesterday, I'm riding around looking at real estate down here in Florida with a realtor, and she is this consummate professional, wonderful human being. And she's got the most gorgeous 5-year-old granddaughter who's riding along with us in the back seat. Now, this granddaughter has stuffed animals. She's got eye makeup. She's got all kinds of stuff. And I'm sitting in the passenger seat. She's right behind me. And she is messing with my hair, reaching over the top, grabbing my beard, interrupting every time Kathy's trying to say something to me while we're driving down the road. And I'm sitting there, and then all of a sudden I just put my hands up in the air, and the two of us just broke down in laughter. It was like we laughed for over a minute straight and could not stop laughing because of the ridiculousness of the situation. What do you do with a 5-year-old that's an exuberant, outgoing, wonderful, just, I mean, that was a gift from God, to have that moment with the three of us sitting there. Of course, the little girl in the back has no idea what happened. She
Right.
just thinks we were playing a game, and all of a sudden she just started messing with Bill in the front seat. Okay. But Kathy and I are sitting there. We can't get a word in edgewise to each other. And it's almost like, you ever had those moments where like you're in a conversation with 3 or 4 people and everybody's talking at once and no one will shut up, and just at least wait a turn. That's kind of what the situation was. And the instinctual response to that is to get uptight and angry. And then, so we shot each other knowing looks, and then we just sat there and laughed our buns off uncontrollably. How she could drive, I have no idea, but she got us there safely.
Every now and then, it's like, it's just, it is. You need that kind of, kids are really good at helping adults to do that.
Yeah.
Um, like last week, I saw my brother's grandkids, some of them, a lot of them, and my little nephew who's 3. I'm just like, I'm in love with him. I mean, he is so adorable. And I call him, a mensch. You know what a mensch is? Like a good person.
Yes.
I
Yep.
call him Menchie. So just like I'll call him Menchie, and I'll be like, and then he turns to me and he says to me, "I'm not a Menchie." And I said, "You're not?" I said, "Yes, you are." He's like, "No, I'm not a Menchie." I said, "Okay, are you a doggy?" And he just cracked up. And then I said, "Maybe you're a bear." And he just like, he has this giggle and this laugh, which are just like, and I mean, it was like, if you want to shift your mood, that was
Yes.
just it. It was like
Yeah.
that smile and that kind of like, which just takes your breath away. And you're just sitting there going, okay, I'm done, like, no, no, like I'm done. There's no way to resist this.
Yeah. By the way, that's an actual therapy to listen to tapes of a baby laughing. You cannot you cannot keep inside you the hurt that you were feeling if you listen to 30 seconds to a minute of a baby continuously giggling. Little pause, then a giggle, then a little pause, then a giggle. And you know, these are just their techniques and their formulas and all the rest of that. But sometimes you got to take a pill, right? Sometimes you got to reach for the medicine cabinet and get something that's just going to get you over this moment where you've been stuck for so long, because the world needs you. The world needs you to always and everywhere be at your best and bring to it what your DNA promised the rest of mankind.
Yeah, I'd have to differ. I'm not a huge. Sometimes you got to grab a pill, but I'll but I'll
It's a
let everybody,
metaphorical pill.
yeah, everybody, out there know that you can follow Bill, and that's fine. I love Bill, but that's not my modus. It's not what I tend to do.
Me either,
But
by the way. Vitamins, yes. Pills, no.
yeah, I know. I always say, friend of mine who's a doctor used to say, supplement now or medication later. So I was just like, I'd like to do supplements now. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, I had a doctor, early on in my 20s that said, most people say it's just expensive pee, but he said, spend the money.
Well, I heard a quote last week, which was an Irma Bomback quote, which I thought was hysterical, which was something like, never go to a doctor whose houseplants have died or whose
Yeah,
office
yeah,
office plants have died. And I just cracked up. I was like, it's a good point. Not one I actually thought of at any point, but it makes a
yeah,
lot of sense. So it was just so funny. But yeah,
yeah,
I love what you're saying, Bill. And I do think you have to have multiple things that, yeah, that have helped you in the past.
yeah.
You have to be willing to try new things sometimes, because I think of a lot of the tools that I have, and I think of some things, like I said, meditation at that point, and I know when it's helpful to me. It's helpful to me on a normal everyday basis. It's helped to me sometimes when I get up and basically I'm good, but I'm just feeling, let's say, overly anxious for, like, because I have a busy day. Very helpful for me to get focused and to but when I'm so that trapped in my head where I don't see a way out, it's not usually where I need to go. I might do something else. Like I might go out, work in the garden and say, now I can sit down and breathe and meditate. But at that point, it's very hard for me. It's almost like telling somebody in the throes of a tantrum not to, like, get upset or not to cry. Like, it just
Calm
doesn't.
down, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's
Calm
it is
down,
Yeah, I think that's funny because nobody in the history of calm down has ever calmed down when somebody told them to calm down.
Exactly. It's, if anything, that makes it worse because you get annoyed, plus you're, like, upset. So you're like, "What do you mean I'm supposed to calm down?"
Yeah, there's something wrong with me over here that I can't calm down. No, I'm not going to calm down. I can control that I'm not going to calm down, right?
Exactly. It's the one thing in life I can control.
Yeah, and see that's the thing. We human beings are equipped with some ridiculously powerful tools that no one ever really trains us to use. And the thing is that when you're in the situation, we're too smart for ourselves. Okay, like dogs and cats. I've said this before, and this is my basic premise: is if you can learn to be a little more childlike, a little more dog-like, and a little more cat-like, that's going to give you the wisdom element from the cat. It's going to give you the joie de vivre and the zest for life from the dog, and it's going to give you the joy, from the child. Those three elements together, give you a shot at being able to maybe not be a victim of your own tools. So we are the only beings that I'm aware of that can take a situation and try to try to come up with an alternative situation that should be happening. Like when people are living in the shoulds and they're shoulding all over themselves, the baddest thing they can possibly do is to continue on that train. So pull the cord, stop the train, put it on a different track, and then, you know, don't sit there, because even though you're on the right track, you'll still get run over, right? You could.
Well, and what you're saying reminds me of the quote by Albert Einstein, which I said the other day, is we can't solve a problem from the same mindset that created it. And when we're so trapped in our thoughts, it's really like we are in one mindset. And as I sat there of late over the last, several weeks, um, going through some challenges and actually saying that to myself, well, you cannot solve a problem from, or expecting something to work that was created from the same mindset.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
probably not going to work. Hate to tell you out there, but I think,
yeah,
you've got to get creative. And I mean, creative in the fact that you've got to think outside the box. You've got to push yourself beyond your limits, probably a little bit,
yeah,
beyond your comfort zone a little bit. And that comfort zone might be in stepping outside that normal path order, because that's freaking scary. I mean, as bad as that those thoughts may be, we know what they are, and we're used to them. We're used to them. So, so sometimes that's a really scary place to be.
agreed. And that's another one of our traits as human beings, and that is the ability to learn to be comfortable with being really uncomfortable. And that's not a good skill. That's a very, very low level survival skill that has close to the autonomic system and breathing, and respiration and all of that sort of thing as you can get. The being uncomfortable, it's kind of, I think, one of nature's ways to tell you there's a change called for, and the more you resist that change, the more you start to reward yourself and being proud of the fact that you were able to be comfortable while you were so uncomfortable. And there are times when that's good. Like if you're waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning and you feel like you got to go get up and go to the bathroom, you can give yourself a pat on the back if you go back to sleep for 1 hour, and then get up an hour later. You won the Cupid doll, okay? However, in life, it doesn't work that way. The longer you spend being in a situation that's not working for you, the less ready to change out of it, the less ready you're going to be to really do something to move your life ahead.
I listened to a podcast recently. There's a podcast that I like. It's called The One You Feed, based on the parable about the wolf. The grandfather tells the grandson about, there are two wolves inside, and the you might say the greedy, jealous one, and then there's the one that's more joyful. And the grandson says, grandpa, which one wins? And he says, the one you feed.
Yeah.
And they had an episode on one of their more recent episodes, I'm pretty sure of, called How to Embrace Change for an Authentic Life, with Najwa Zabian, who I guess just wrote a book. She's a British author.
Right.
And it was really quite good, talking about change and our resistance to change. And, and having been at times which called for a change. And how, you talked about, we're really good at being uncomfortable. I think we're really good at being downright, like, whatever, in the wells of, in the swallows of grief, and in the in we get very like, we're very good. The body itself is really good at being in a place like that.
Yeah.
We're very good at making minor adjustments, compensations in our body and in our emotions to kind of keep things the same, because the fear of doing anything different is scary and overwhelming. And that space when something ends, and something has not quite yet begun is always a very interesting space. And they had a really, I don't remember what it was, but listen to the podcast because they referred to that space as if you could reframe it, like reframe it as, let's say, the time of possibility, or like just like in your mind. Because I think that I've been in that space when something ends and the need almost to want to fill it with something, because that emptiness or that feeling is like, I get to choose, first of all, what takes its place, but also there's like if you take it like it is, there's a little bit of, well, there should be a lot, but let's say there's an element of responsibility for that, that if you
Yes.
decide what's going to go in there. And then there's this feeling of like, oh my gosh, like, and I used to rush in certain circumstances to fill those voids. And then I've gotten quite, in certain situations, I've gotten a lot better about not rushing out to replace it with something, like
Yeah.
letting that space remain for a little while and just breathing, and to myself saying to myself, well, something better will come in, because a door closes, a door always opens kind of feeling or thoughts in my head. But that's a very challenging place to be sometimes, is in that kind of interim, almost like a limbo. It's kind of like,
Yeah.
okay, what's going to happen?
Yeah. I think people spend a lot of time living and putting up with things, that are they're not the worst they could be. And while they're living, I think, a cramped up, sort of stuck existence where they're the trade-off and the risk of doing something different is that it might be worse. And so what if it is? It's like when you get in your car and you head out on the highway, you put your foot on the gas. If you're aimed at a tree, you take your foot off the gas and you do something else. Life is like that. But we act like every decision we make is going to be the one that puts us on the track of where we're going to go for the whole rest of our existence. And we're entirely too significant, ladies and gentlemen. Dogs and cats don't do that. Okay. Seriously, babies don't do that. So be like the baby, be like the doggy, be like the kitty cat. Okay.
I love that image. But it is true. And I do think that not only, but I always say to my students in class, like, your body's not like a piece of, like a heavy piece of furniture, that once you put it there, like once you step your foot forward, let's say a simple thing like a lunge, like not complicated pose, once you step your foot forward, you have the ability to move it. So
Right.
if it does not feel right, it's not like it's now been cemented there and
Right.
it's there for the rest of your life. So, same thing, like you make a decision or you do something and then you say to yourself, not wise move, or that didn't work out as planned,
Yeah.
as, as I planned, that didn't work out as I planned. And yes, there are lots of things, I think that I was having this conversation with a friend of mine this morning, close friend, and I said that, part of the issue is we attach so much, like we have so many ideas about how things are supposed to quote unquote work out, and how we decide, things are supposed to be. And that's one of the biggest issues, is we go in with this whole huge agenda of, like, even in every conversation. I mean, that's what's so nice about our conversations, Bill, is we never have an agenda.
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty sure I don't know what I'm talking about. So that makes it easy for me.
No, but it's true. We don't go in with a particular plan. And as funny
Exactly.
as it seems, I don't go into my classes with a particular plan either.
Yes.
And the gift of that is that when I ask people what they need, I have the ability to automatically adapt and change what I was planning on doing, even if I had a plan,
Right.
into what everybody needs versus what I want
Right.
to teach, let's say.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it just, but I think that part of it is we go and we do things with a particular plan, which we should. I mean, it's, we have every, to plan for things. We want them to be successful. But then is like, how much do we attach to that plan and how much are we willing to let go of the plan and tweak it along the way if it's not unfolding like we
Yeah.
thought?
Yeah, our culture is really, really big of the binary soup. Okay. Everything is binary. It's either right or it's wrong. It's either hot or it's cold. It's big or it's small. It works or it doesn't work. And you're either going to get the desired your result or you're a failure. Okay. Result or failure, it's binary. However, the way to live a life, because it doesn't come with a manual, ladies and gentlemen, there are no demonstrations. You have to go out and find mentors to copy. If that even works, they give you ideas when you get to be a certain age. Prior to that, you try to model people's behaviors, and good luck with that. Not everybody can be Gandhi. So the thing is that, as you said before, having a way to get back on track again quickly, as opposed to wallowing in the failure of you didn't get the spoonful of sugar into your cup of tea. You don't sit there for hours, agonizing over it. Should I put another teaspoon of sugar in here? No, you just say that didn't work. All right, we'll clean it up and we'll try another one. Or maybe I don't need the sugar. I can make another choice entirely here. But the point is what if, instead of getting a result each time, like the one that we expect, intend, want, and desire, what if you do what we do and something happens and we go, "Hey, that's not bad," or that didn't work. So you're freed up to be back in action quickly, and that's really that time between feeling the sense of failure, getting the bad news, or having someone deliver a message to you that you think could possibly mean a lot of different things, and how long you're taken out of the play until you can be back into your normal, beautiful, lively, wonderful, vivacious self, setting the world on fire, filling it up with your love. You know, Darn it, we want to make that as short a period as possible. But, if you're going to a room and it doesn't smell good, get out of there. Don't stand around complaining about it. Just get out of there. Go to a different room.
I totally agree with you, Bill. But I think there are certain things that are hard. I mean, they're not easy. Like all of a sudden realizing that you're not spending time with people who feed you, like feed
Right.
your soul or who support you, and then all of a sudden you're like, and sometimes it's hard to leave people who you realize that about,
Yeah.
and or a community of people because
Yeah.
you realize that you've moved on or you're at a different time in your life than they are or whatever it
Yeah.
is. And I think that in that case, and then there are easier things, like literally, like you're in a particular situation and you think to yourself, or there's a situation that does cause you negativity or whatever. And I've been
Right.
in situations like that where I'm like, literally, I'm like, I choose just not to go anymore. Like I just choose that's not where I want to spend my time, or that's not, and sometimes those people are acquaintances and that's a lot easier. And sometimes they're people who are family and that's a little more challenging, because
Yes.
but I think there are points where, sometimes those situations or the smelly room is a job where you realize that, okay, I've got to switch careers or I've got to do something new because
Right.
this isn't working out for me. This isn't an environment I like. I like the job itself, but this
Right.
isn't, and or maybe it's a neighborhood you live in. And
Right.
then all of a sudden you're like, okay, well, I've outgrown this neighborhood and I need to move somewhere else with whatever. And those are things that where those are just some examples of like the smelly room.
Yeah. And of all of those results oriented people, that it's either win or fail. Um, See if you can change the definition of failure in your life, have it be like a lesson that, they say if you lose, don't lose the lesson. But no, how about you get a lesson out of everything you do? You know, be mindful, be attentive, spend some time really, kind of diving into what's going on, what happened. And excuse me, I turned my AC off and now it's getting hot in my car and that's making me want to sneeze. So what I did is I blew my nose. Did you see that? Okay. And here I am talking about it, which is even worse. I mean, what the hell? Bill, TMI. All right, guys, you know me. So the point is that in life, it's not the bad things that are going on in your life, the hard things, the uncomfortable things, the things that hurt. Those are not the enemy because you're going to do something about those. Getting into a state of complacency where things are just plain good enough, you're not happy, but they could be worse. But why would you go less than for like the whole gusto, You never know how much more time you've got. You and I live like we got time, right? And that's the joke, according also to Einstein. We live
Well,
like we have time.
yeah, and so many out there, philosophers through the years, or just people in general,
Yeah,
very wise people who you realize you really never know.
right.
We really, and I think we've learned that over the past 3 years or 4 years, especially.
Yeah,
I think most of society, but I know that you and I have definitely learned that. And you you realize that life is too short and people are too valuable um for you to think like that. But I think that you there are little, and once you, like, if you're in that, yes, there are those times where you feel like you might, like those dramatic times where life is really crappy, excuse my
right.
expression, but like really hard. And then there are times when you are like sort of coasting, where life is not bad and life isn't good, isn't great, but you're kind of going through. And and with all that, you just look for opportunities to make it even better. Let's just say that.
Sure.
Then wherever you are, like, for me, it's always like that's when nature gets to be really big, because I really think nature's miraculous.
Yeah.
It's especially now here that I'm where, we live pretty close, very close to each other, Bill. Normally, when you're not in Florida gallivanting, perusing around, but we live very close, and it has been a spectacular spring. Like, it's been
Yes.
like beyond gorgeous. And so, it's just that inspires me. It makes me, I realize the miracle of nature, whatever. If you believe in God, whatever, however you want to label that outside energy or force or universe.
Yeah.
Um, and then just looking for opportunities to be grateful always.
Yeah.
Even when I'm stuck, that's what I do. I'm like, okay, well, okay, there's an opportunity here for gratefulness.
Yeah. And I think the thing that I want people to take a look at, um, Dalai Lama is an interesting guy. I've never met him. I have read many of the quotes of many famous people, but one of the things that I've heard him say is that the true, authentic state of being for human beings is to be happy and satisfied. It's only the attachment to their troubles and things they don't have that makes them unhappy and dissatisfied. They want a state of being. They're attached to a state of being that they don't have access to. And with that being said, your responsibility to yourself, because no one else can do this for you. They will never know if you're struggling. They're never going to know. Like most people, you go by every single day, they're dealing with demons that you have no idea. and they put a good face on and they smile at you. And there's a high rate of people that check out of the planet, by their own decision every single day. And it's important that you think of yourself as a very blessed thing and a very blessed being that deserves to be authentic, that deserves, and I don't mean like good person or impressing other people's. Authenticity has nothing to do with anybody else. Authenticity is for you to be truly interested in who you are, what your contribution is that satisfies you and keeps you fed and happy on this planet. Now, if you're doing that, it's going to take care of anybody else around you, or something else will take care of them. But the authenticity that's available to you is only accessible because you put your foot on the gas. Nobody else can do that for you.
Mm-hmm. No, that's um, absolutely true. And I think that when we're in relationships with others, which most of us are, to some extent, whether you have friends or colleagues or neighbors or whatever, we don't live in isolation, most of us. And then um, we um, we need to remember that when we interact with other people, because they don't know what we're going through unless we decide we're going to share it with them.
Yeah.
I mean, they really don't. I mean, I don't, you don't know what's going on in somebody unless you really sit down and have a conversation and ask them,
Yes.
what is happening with you? I've noticed or whatever, however, even if you haven't know how are you, but not even how are you, but really how are you?
Right.
Like really, cuppa, I'm fine kind of thing, which is like one of my like phrases that I hate the most
Yeah.
because it covers up and people just automatically flies out. How are you? I'm fine.
Yeah.
When you can just tell that they're really not, and maybe it is a comfort thing that they don't feel like comfortable sharing that, or a time, like a time and space thing, like they're not in a location where they feel comfortable sharing stuff or that's personal or whatever. But there are points where you know that they're either not ready or they don't feel, and I don't want to say comfortable because it's not exactly comfortable. I think that laying things out, there's that element of vulnerability and, like taking off the mask, which is like when we talk about scary, is scary for people.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the easiest way that I've found as a coach to help people identify when authenticity is present is, like, for instance, when you sit down and you start doing some kind of an activity and it's 1 o'clock, you look at at the clock on the wall, and then you're engaged for a little while, seems like 15 or 20 minutes, and then you look at the clock on the wall, it's 4 o'clock. 3 hours has gone by and you didn't even notice it. So your attention has not been on how much time is this taking, what time is it. It's been fully engaged with whatever you're working on that's meaningful for you. And I think the access to authenticity and is something that you unconceal. It's not something you create.
Right.
Authenticity is different than happiness. Okay. Happiness you generate. Authenticity you let out of the box and then you feed and nurture it. Okay. It's
Yeah,
quite different.
absolutely. I mean, authenticity is like really listen, like literally, this is who I am.
Yes.
That this is who I am. Um, in entirety.
Yes.
So, and when I think about that, I think because I think for a long time I thought about, okay, I'm authentic and I am, but I'm authentic in the fact that literally putting on like the facade of like everything's always hunky dory. I'm
Yes.
authentic, like the highest part of myself was always coming out in every situation, but that's also not being human at the
It's yeah,
same
it's
time.
also very inauthentic, isn't it?
And inauthentic, exactly. I mean,
While
I
you're
was
trying to be inauthentic, you're not being authentic.
authentic, and part of it was because that was part of me, but
Oh yeah.
it was just a very one-sided part of me. And
Yes.
just if you go through So let's say I was showing my higher self because I spend a lot of, time talking about the higher self, but I wasn't showing the more human parts of myself.
Yes.
And so, yes, and authenticity means living a life that's, full and not denying. And, you know, that's it.
Yeah. So if you think in terms of what we're talking about right now, like a state of being that is authentic or a higher self. These are like terms that kind of invoke idealism. They're complete concept, by the way. There is no authentic out there anywhere in the world. You can't cut something open and know there's some authentic right there, or there's some higher self or anything like that. But here's the deal. I mean, the moment you say, well, like that was really authentic, no, it wasn't. Okay. Or you say, wow, I really got there. I got my higher self. Okay. So that wasn't it, you know? And so what life is really all about is finding that zone that's in the like growing like a weed and constantly having more ground to take, and not patting yourself on the backside every time you win, or take a little bit more ground, because these things are temporary. Things change. And if you don't believe that, I'll give you a banana and see you in a month, and let's see if it looks any different. Okay.
Right. As you're saying that about, authenticity, when I was talking about this the other day, I said, when I first started to practice yoga, I remember, sitting in class and it was very traditional. My teachers were very traditional and we used a lot of philosophy and everything. And it was wonderful. But it
Yeah.
was all almost to this extent where liberation or bliss was this experience of living in that very higher self space all the time.
Right.
And I remember thinking to myself, well, then it's hopeless because I'm never going to be able to achieve that. Like, how do you stay in that space all the time? Like, and I remember thinking to myself, well, and I practiced because I loved and I would get glimpses of that space. And I was like, and of course you do, you love being there or whatever. But then you realize that, 99% of my day, I'm not there, and maybe a glimpse of that 1%. And then I started practicing a style of yoga called Anusara, and Anusara stands for means to step into the flow, is like the flow of the universe, and it really meant experiencing life and all that is. Meaning, if life was hard, you didn't escape it, you lived it. If life was
Yeah.
joyful, if life was joyful, you did the same thing. It was
Yeah.
truly being in every moment as it came. And I remember thinking to myself, oh, I can do that. Like that was achievable to me, and not
Right.
achievable in the fact of like I was trying to, like I said, achieve something. Like this is a different, if I could figure out another word, I would, because I don't really like the word achievable. But I thought to myself, that's doable. Like I
Yeah.
could practice being so present that whatever happens, I'm there. Like if it's good, I'm there. If it's bad, I'm there. And just, and that was life. And I thought, oh, okay, I can do that. As opposed to trying to reach some sort of idea of higher self or living in a space of, where I was not, I was just this person who was all, just like the spirit part of myself, let's say.
Yes.
I was like, well, that's fine and dandy, but that, 0.5% a day, I'm going to be able to do that just isn't enough.
Yeah. It's always like that at the beginning. You have this notion of the what being your higher self means, and it means you know an amazing amount of wisdom and discipline and all the rest of that sort of thing. And maybe all it means is just lightening up and having a sense of humor, like when Tonka seemed to like that definition. So we'll go with it. Well, I'll tell you what, kiddo, we've done it again. We've hit our hour mark. Is there anything else that you want to say to kind of like wrap things? Tonka seems to want to say a lot.
Yes, he is. He's very vocal at the moment. My mom's staying with me, and she was outside and came in, and he has to like announce her.
Yeah, and welcome her back, right? It's funny. Well, anything to wrap up?
No, I think it was a great conversation, and thank you, Bill.
You know what? Thank you. The best conversations are the ones where you can't tell who's giving and who's receiving, I say.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And I
Yeah.
think that's why I always look forward to our little chats.
Yes, me too, Bill. So have a great time. I'll probably talk to you while you're away again, and just enjoy.
Yep. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we are lighting the candle, a world that works. And at the end of an hour, if we've done something to make each other's lives a little bit better over here on our side, we're pretty sure that you're going to take something away that will be useful to you in some way. And don't try to put it to work. Just try to think about it. Try to engage it like a possibility, and have fun. When life gets hard, stop pushing. Okay, have fun. Laugh. Be like Tonka. Okay, be like the baby and be like the kitty cat.
That's
All
right.
right. Bye bye, y'all.
You've been listening to Lighting the Candle, a World That Works, part of the Exvadio Podcast Network. You can catch every episode as well as the rest of the network at exvadio.com, the Apple Podcasts app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Amazon Music, and wherever you find podcasts.